There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels personal. It's the silence that enters the room when you do. The kind where no one says anything wrong, but everything feels wrong anyway. You sit at the edge of a couch, or maybe the back seat of a car, and the air around you stiffens, as if even sound has learned not to touch you. You glance around, searching for warmth in the smallest gestures, a look, a word, a smile. But all you find are faces that don't quite meet your eyes. So you start shrinking, inch by inch. Your laugh gets quieter, your movements smaller, until you learn that your safest form is invisibility. Because being unseen hurts less than being seen and rejected. And that's how it begins. The unspoken life of a child who feels like their existence is an interruption. Not every child is hated out loud. Sometimes the hatred comes softly, in the tone that says, "Not now," in the sigh that follows your name. In the small ways, love chooses someone else first, and you start to wonder, what did I do wrong just by being here? That's the quiet tragedy of the hated child. They don't grow up angry. They grow up apologizing for existing. Every child begins with one sacred belief, that the people who brought them into this world must love them. It's not arrogance, it's survival, so when love doesn't arrive, the mind doesn't say, something's wrong with them. It whispers, something's wrong with me. That's how the wound forms, quietly, beneath the surface. No scars, no screams, just the slow rearranging of a child's sense of self. They start editing their personality, removing the parts that seem too much, hiding the ones that draw criticism. They learn that affection is conditional, and silence becomes the safest language they know. When a parent's face hardens at your presence, you stop seeking connection and start seeking permission. Permission to speak, permission to take up space, permission to exist. This is not what we usually think of as trauma. There are no bruises to point to, no names for the pain, but it's emotional starvation. And like any hunger, it shapes the way you see the world. You begin to confuse neglect with peace. You mistake rejection for normalcy, and soon, you learn to reject yourself before anyone else can, because somewhere deep inside, a belief takes root. If I was easy to love, they would have loved me. That single sentence becomes the silent law of your life. It decides your friendships, your relationships, your worth. It follows you like a ghost, not seen, but always felt. No parent wakes up one morning and decides, I'll choose one child to wound. It never starts like that. It starts with imbalance. The kind of imbalance that passes through generations unnoticed. Maybe one child reminds them of everything they regret. A certain tone of voice, a stubbornness, a resemblance to the person who once broke their heart. And suddenly, that child isn't just a child anymore. They're a reflection of something the parent can't bear to face, so the parent withdraws. Not in ways the world would notice, but in micro moments. The cold glance, the absent praise, the sigh that says, why can't you be more like them? And then comes comparison, that subtle, lifelong contest no one signed up for. One child becomes the golden one, the pride, the one who fits the family's story. The other becomes the lesson. When love is rationed, children start competing for oxygen. One performs for approval, the other hides for safety. Both lose, because what's really being measured isn't behavior, it's belonging. Sometimes the parent doesn't even realize they're doing it. They believe they're teaching discipline, building character, shaping resilience. But what the child learns instead is that affection must be earned and worth must be proven. Behind closed doors, this kind of childhood looks ordinary. No shouting, no bruises, no broken glass. Just the quiet erosion of a self that never felt invited to exist fully. And so the hated child isn't always the one who's screamed at. Sometimes they're the one who's ignored the most, because to be hated is still to be seen. But to be dismissed, that's to vanish while standing in plain sight. Rejection, repeated often enough, becomes rhythm. The child begins to dance around it, carefully, constantly. They learn to study people's faces like weather forecasts. A sigh means storm coming. A quiet tone means stay small. A pause before your name means you did something wrong again. Soon, every room feels like a test you can fail, so you start performing. Not for applause, but for survival. This is how anxiety is born in silence. How hypervigilance becomes a personality. Every decision, every word, passes through a mental filter. Will this make them hate me again? And when that question becomes your heartbeat, you lose the ability to trust even kindness. Because love starts to feel dangerous, unpredictable, like a trick that's about to end. The hated child grows into an expert in self-erasure. They apologize for things that aren't their fault. They read other people's moods better than their own. They overthink every word before it leaves their mouth. And in moments of silence, they don't feel peace. They feel panic. Because silence, once upon a time, was punishment. Eventually, they internalize the voice that used to wound them. It becomes their own. It whispers through mistakes, through heartbreaks, through ordinary days. You're the problem. You always were. It's not logic, it's conditioning. A survival instinct that stayed long after the danger was gone. And so they grow up not knowing the difference between humility and self-hatred, between kindness and people-pleasing, between peace and emptiness. They only know one rule: don't give anyone a reason to leave. Years pass. The child grows up. The table becomes an office desk. The sharp silence turns into a co-worker's cold tone, a partner's sigh, a friend who forgets to reply. And suddenly, without knowing why, you feel small again, because that feeling never really left. It just learned how to wear adult clothes. The hated child becomes the adult who apologizes too often, who reads too deeply into pauses, who assumes every distance means they did something wrong. They chase approval the way others chase air, and when love finally arrives, real, gentle, safe, they don't know what to do with it. Because safety feels suspicious, calm feels boring, chaos feels like home. In relationships, they may become one of two people: the pleaser, who bends, shrinks, agrees, stays quiet, hoping to earn what was never freely given, or the avoider, who keeps their heart locked behind iron walls, fearing that letting someone in means handing them the same weapon their parents once used. Both are children in disguise, still trying to rewrite the story of their worth. And this doesn't just shape love, it shapes everything. The jobs they choose, the friends they keep, the way they handle success, as if any mistake could make it vanish. Even in moments of achievement, the voice whispers, "You're still not enough." That's the cruelest part of being once rejected. You start to carry your own rejection wherever you go. You start doing the job the world once did to you. But here's the twist. What looks like weakness from the outside is often a kind of emotional genius. Because people who have lived through rejection can sense others' pain before a word is spoken. They know loneliness by scent. They feel heartbreak by atmosphere. They don't just see wounds, they recognize them. And sometimes, that sensitivity, the very trait born from pain, becomes their deepest gift. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when the pattern finally shows itself. You hear someone's sharp tone, and instead of shrinking, you pause. You feel that old ache rise in your chest, and something inside whispers, this pain isn't new, it's memory. That pause, that moment of awareness, is the beginning of healing. Because healing doesn't start with forgiveness or grand acts of self-love. It starts with recognition, with being able to say, I was treated like I didn't matter, and it wasn't my fault. Psychologists call this reparenting. It means becoming for yourself what you never had. The calm voice that says, it's okay to rest. The steady hand that says, you don't have to earn love today. The gentle presence that says, you're safe now. At first it feels awkward. Your nervous system doesn't trust it. Kindness feels foreign. Criticism feels like home. But the more you choose softness, the more your body learns. Safety isn't danger anymore. Peace doesn't mean silence. It means freedom. Healing is not forgetting. It's remembering without reliving. It's being able to touch the wound without letting it reopen. And sometimes, healing doesn't look beautiful. It looks like distance, boundaries, saying no, walking away from people who keep you small, even if they share your blood. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. The hated child inside you doesn't vanish. They don't need to. They need to be seen. You meet their eyes, you take their trembling hand, and you say the words they've waited a lifetime to hear. You did nothing wrong. You were always enough. You belong here. Every time you speak to yourself with kindness, you rewrite the script. Every act of self-respect is a rebellion against your past. And slowly, the hated child becomes the healed adult. Somewhere inside, that child still waits, waiting to be seen, to be chosen. And maybe no one else will do it. Maybe it was always meant to be you. Healing doesn't erase the past. It reclaims it. It says, yes, I was once unseen, but now I see myself. Belonging isn't something you earn. It's remembering that you were always worthy, always enough. So when the old ache whispers, turn inward. Smile at that child and say, you are safe, you are loved, you belong. And if you want to explore this further, to understand another way childhood invisibility shapes life. Check out our next video, The Psychology of the Ignored Child. It dives into why some children feel unseen even in the warmest homes, and how that shapes adulthood, because the journey from rejection to belonging doesn't have to end here.